Hello, my name is Bourke Wilmot. I had ETS surgery for polymer hyperhidrosis, sweaty hands, sweaty feet, facial blushing. I always had a problem with sweaty hands, sweaty feet as a child, and it always bothered me. It was embarrassing. And as I grew into a teenager, you know, socially, it was even more embarrassing and a problem. As I became an adult, job interviews, all these things, it was still, always having sweaty hands. It was a problem, and it kept me from doing a lot of things. And I was, socially embarrassed, and it caused a lot of anxiety, a lot of panic attacks. So one day I saw something on TV. It was the cure for sweaty hands, this ETS surgery. So I looked it up on the internet, and I found these Swedish surgeons who originated the surgery, and they looked like the most experienced and the most. They had a website called sweatypalms.com or something, and so I got a hold of them, and I was recruited by a Dr. Robert Myers and Ruth Maddie. So this doctor called me and said, yeah, you should do this surgery. I had it done. It worked for me. It's safe. It's simple. It's 20 minutes. You're in and out. I'm figuring, wow, this is awesome. This is the cure I've been looking for. So I agreed to it. I signed on the dotted line. I flew to Sweden, and I was excited about the whole thing. I got to see Europe for the first time. I met the doctor, the following day before the surgery, and we had a little 5-minute interview. And his exact words were, "Let me see your hands. Yes, you're a good candidate. Your hands are sweaty." He asked me what I do for a living. I said, I'm a truck driver. I said, okay, that's fine. And he just asked, do you have any questions for me? And I'm like, no, not really. Not knowing what to ask. I mean, he's the doctor, right? So I was just like, well, what should I ask him? I drew a blank. I said, well, no, let's get this done. Let's do it. So it was literally a 5-minute interview. He never told me anything about side effects. He never said anything about compensatory sweating. There was a mention on the paperwork about compensatory sweating that affected maybe a small percentage, something like, I want to say 5-10% of the people had some compensatory sweating, which I really didn't even know what that meant. So nothing was really explained to me, but it wasn't going to stop me. I was like, well, sounds like it's good to me. And I didn't know the hands were connected to the head and the sweating and how it worked. And they should have explained it. And of course, had they explained it in detail, I would have never done it. And they probably knew this, and they didn't want to scare me away. And I had already flown to Sweden, so it wasn't like I was going to back out at this point. So next day, I had the surgery along with 2 other guys, and I woke up and I had dry hands, and I was happy for the first half an hour, and then I walked outside with these 2 guys to have lunch, and it was a warm, sunny day in Sweden. And right away I began to notice my back, my trunk, my abdomen was soaking wet, just sitting in the sun, doing nothing. And I got scared, and I asked the other guys, is your back sweating? And they said, yeah, my back's sweating. I'm like, well, maybe this is a normal side effect. Maybe it'll just dissipate. Let's not worry about it. We were all a little concerned about the fact that we were sweating profusely without doing anything except basking in the sun, right? Well, I got back on the plane after the trip, and the sweating wasn't alleviating. I was on the plane, and I was still sweating really bad on the plane. Wasn't even in the sun. I was just on the plane, and it was a little stuffy. But I noticed, yeah, my hands were dry, but my abdomen was sweating. A little bit, concerned, but yet I was headed back to the States, and I was just hoping and praying that this side effect would dissipate and all would be well. Well, I got home, and things didn't improve. If anything, things got worse. I started to notice my hands started to wrinkle. I started to get very dry skin. My eyes, I started to get really bad. I couldn't, my eyes were very sensitive now to the sun. And I thought, well, this is strange. And then I noticed other side effects like my hair started falling out, which I never had a hair loss problem. I started to get dizzy. I had a bout of dizziness for like 6 months. I didn't want to believe it was from the surgery, but more and more stuff was happening, not good things, you know, and I still wasn't getting any head sweat, which was concerning. Meanwhile, years pass and years pass, and I'm obviously regretting the surgery immensely because I'm still sweating profusely at the trunk and I'm not sweating at the head at all. And things weren't improving, and years had gone by, and then I noticed there was a cold night, and I had a girlfriend. She says, God, your head's sweating. And it was cold out, and I was shivering, and I had like the early stages of like a hypothermia. And the colder it got, I started to get head sweat, which I hadn't seen. I'm like, this is strange. And then I realized, you know, I had opposite thermoregulation. When it's cold, my head would sweat. When it was hot, my head wouldn't sweat at all. So now I have another problem with thermoregulation, and this was scaring me because now I couldn't go in the cold either. So I said, what's going to happen next? Well, it just, everything seemed to just not get better. If anything, things continued to get worse. Hair loss, wrinkly skin. Meanwhile, I'm going to show you what my hands look like. If I could put the phone down. My hands look horrible. I get a lot of comments on them. I can buckle the skin or wrinkle the skin, and you can see it actually. This is after putting lotion on them. I just put lotion on my hands, and you can see how bad they still are. And you see the skin, it holds a wrinkle. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't go away. And people constantly comment on my hands, and they wonder, and I said, I just say I have eczema and dry skin, and people kind of look the other way, but strangers will often look at my hands too. And it's just concerning and embarrassing, and I don't want to have to hide my hands all. How do you hide your hands anyhow, right? And so this is one concern. Constant lotion. I've tried everything. I put oil, and now I'm having major hair loss. I keep my hair long to cover up the balding. I have a large part down the middle, and it's always dry and itchy. No matter how much good stuff, product, oils, good conditioners I put on my hair, there's always an issue with dry scalp, constant dandruff, flaky skin. I seem to be losing the battle, and now there's a bald spot on the back of my head that getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and people say, well, that's just heredity. Could be, but it just seemed to accelerate the whole thing because now there's no oils in your skin, there's no water, there's no flushing, and as a result, you become dehydrated easily. It's dangerous going in the sun, and I love the sun. I surf all the time. I'm an outdoor person. I enjoy the outdoors, hiking, etc. So not being able to go in the sun is quite an issue for me. I have to really be careful. You get sunburned easily. None of these side effects were mentioned, and I should mention that I did get back to the doctor in Sweden a few months after the surgery, and I mentioned to him these side effects that I noticed, and I told him I was scared, and these weren't told to me, and is this normal? And he said, I've never heard of such things. These side effects, these aren't from the surgery, and you're crazy, and you're rude, and don't ever contact me again. And he never got back to me. And I was kind of like, wow, this doctor's not a good guy. So, and I looked into like trying to get a reversal. There was no reversal that worked. I met a guy, and he tried the reversal, and it was just more nonsense. It didn't work for him. And it's the same surgeons trying to do a reversal, and they're trying to use a nerve from your ankle and attaching it with tape, and it dies instantly. And it's just another, they're opening you up and deflating your lungs again and doing all this craziness, and they got nowhere with it. And he didn't get any better. If anything, he got worse. So where does that leave me? You know, there's it's now been 20 years. And I think about it every day, you know, when I'm soaked to the bone. I only can wear white. It hides the sweat. I usually wear white, and luckily I wear a uniform, and I can hide the sweating. On a hot day, of course, I do landscaping. I have to change my shirt a couple times a day when it's hot. And people wonder, but I've only told a couple people about the surgery, because I really don't want to tell people. I mean, how do you explain something like this? It's a long explanation, and I really don't want people to know what a fool I was, you know. So now I'm in a worse boat. The only thing I can see is I've found other people that made the same mistake, and now we're putting it on the internet, looking for somebody to help us. And believe me, I've been on many forums and talked to many people, and we tried every medical board you can think of, and everybody just turns you away. I mean, our numbers are big, but they're not that big, you know. And in the scheme of things, the world's a big place, and we're probably about 10,000 people. Maybe there's not enough money in it for people to help us at this point. I mean, the surgery cost me $7,000 originally, and for a surgeon to destroy my life for $7,000, I don't know how the guy can live with himself, that he can keep doing the surgery over and over again, because they continually do it. And they know they're hurting people, yet they continue to do it, and nobody stops them. Now, in Sweden, they made it illegal to do any minors. You have to be over 18 to have the surgery now. But that's it. They still do it, and the doctors are protected, and nobody can really hurt them or sue them. Or in the States, there's a statute of limitations of a year, and after that, you can't touch them. It's really sad. It's amazing that they can get away with this, and I hold the surgeons liable. I think they're totally responsible, and if anything, they should do jail time for what they've done to people. In my opinion, they shouldn't even be walking free. Well, that's all I can really say about it. I've learned to kind of adapt to it, but I live in a pleasant climate, thank God. But you know, life goes on, and meanwhile we're looking, we're searching, we're hoping, we're all praying for some kind of reversal. So if you're a surgeon out there and you think you can help us, please do. Thank you very much for your time.